So I have been working for Villalobos for, I think it's actually been 11 years now. And I have adopted a lot of dogs from the rescue. For some dogs, it was like a slow build. You know, I had them for a little while and I was like, I just don't see you going anywhere. That happened with my first bloodhound, Buford. I was actually just watching him for Tia while she was recovering from her leg surgery. And she knew that I had always loved him because I had taken care of him a few times. And she texted me one day and she was like, Lizzy, do you want Buford? And I was like, yes. That was one of the best decisions I've ever made, was keeping Buford. And then I had this little dog, Twinkle. She was a small dog, and I hadn't really been into small dogs. I had always had bigger dogs, but I was working out in the country, and then all of a sudden, this little, like, Pomeranian Sheltie mix comes walking out of the little blue barrel that we used as, like, dog houses, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, hi. And she just came right to me. We walked out of there together. I get to the barn to go bring her to drop her off, and I'm holding her and I can't let her go. And I start crying and I'm like, oh my God, you're coming home with me. I can't let you go. You're mine. You're my dog. I don't know. I was nuts to even try to drop you off. You're mine. And that was my story about Twinkle. And that's how it happened. Leroy I got from Tia and M2, and I was not planning on taking another big-ass hound into my house. They were like, he's the most perfect bloodhound ever, like, you have to take him. And I'm like, okay, fine, like, I'll foster him. So I was in the country, loaded him up in my car, and I'm like, he's got to ride shotgun. Like, this is a giant animal. I don't have room for, like, a big enough crate in my car. It's like, okay, he's riding shotgun. And I'm like, oh my God, the time. I have to go pick up my kids. They get in the car, and there's just this giant creature sitting in the front seat with me. I was like, yeah, this is Leroy. We're just going to foster him. And my son immediately is like, well, why can't we just keep him? He was so sweet to the kids, and, like, they thought it was just hilarious seeing him ride in the front seat with me. Then me and Tia go down to Florida for this, like, bloodhound search and rescue training. It was a really cool experience, and having that type of experience, like seeing your dog do what they were actually born and bred to do, made me, like, fall for him even more. And I was like, okay, guess he's mine. And that's how I ended up with Leroy. One of the dogs that I currently have is Max, and a lot of people ask me when they see him, why does he have some white patches of fur along his back? I was sitting in my office and one of the staff was like, hey, the guy who works around the corner has a dog that he said was just running around loose, like dragging a leash behind. I come out and they're like, he's growling a little bit. And I'm like, okay, all right, he's probably scared. Like, if somebody just dumped him or he's lost. I could also see there were a couple wounds on him. So I bring him into my office and lays down. And anytime you kind of go to approach him while he's laying down, he growls a little bit, but he's not lunging. And I'm just like, this is pain growling. He's hurting, like the way that he's laying here. Because then when I would sit down in my chair, he would come over to me and put his head on my lap, and he would let me pet his head, and his head had no wounds on it. And I'm like, oh my God, he is so afraid of, like, being touched because he's hurting. I scanned him. He had a microchip. So I called a microchip. And a woman answers the phone, and I said, hey, I was like, I have your dog here. I'm not really sure what happened. He looks to have some injuries. And she was like, yeah, I don't want him. I was like, so no problem. I was like, I would love to care for him and treat him the way that he is supposed to be treated. I think I probably said a few other choice words. So I bring him to the vet, and they end up sedating him and shaving his back. And when they shaved his back, it was all burned. They said these are chemical burns. So he stayed at the vet for a little while, and I pick him up, and he's sitting in the back seat. He, like, stuck his nose up in the air and just, like, started, like, smelling out the window and, like, taking in, like, the fresh air. And I'm just like, he knows he's gonna be okay. And I was like, I can't bring him back to the rescue. This is my dog. He's just coming straight to my house. And you know what? He can be such a pain in the butt. Like, he really can. But there is never, ever a time that I regret keeping him. He's very sound sensitive, so he'll bark at the smallest noise. But He has also kept me safe on more than one occasion and has made me feel safe at home with my two kids. And he's wonderful with the kids. That's probably one of my favorite things about him is how he is with the kids. Come here. Hey, Bub. That's what he does. And he just like waits until I pet him. That's like our little thing. That was the first time when he came up to me in the office, it just made me feel like he trusted me. And so now whenever he does that, it just brings me back to that moment. And it's one of my favorite things that he does is so I always pet him because I never want him to stop doing that. He is an example of just how amazing dogs are and how resilient they are. The fact that it was a human that abused him and abandoned him, but yet he was so trusting of me right away. And I was also going through a rough time, and it hit me one day where I was like, he came to me like broken, like on the inside and outside. And I wasn't thinking about myself at the time. I just wanted to care for him, but I was also broken at that time too. And it sounds so cheesy, but I feel like we were meant to be, and he came to me for a reason, and we both got each other through a difficult time, and here we are, happy as can be. From the time I was a little girl, I cannot remember a time in my life where I did not have a dog. I never had multiple dogs like I do now. I blame the rescue for that, but they complete our family. They make our home feel like home. We're just like a happy little family, and I could not imagine our house without any one of these dogs.